Good morning, Austin. We are back here. Zachary Friedley is our guest. Before we get to him, a big thank you to our partners at BOA Technology, BOA Fit System, the best fit system on the market. You see these two dials on my fresh Speedland GS Oaks. Big thank you to BOA for their steadfast support of Freetrail and everything that we do, and for the production of amazing products. Zach Friedley, welcome to the program. Nice to see you.
I see you. Hey, I got a BOA on my leg.
Yes! Holy smokes! The most authentic product integration in podcast history, and totally serendipitous.
Yep.
Cool. Man, welcome to the show. Welcome to TRE. How have the last couple of days been?
Been pretty awesome at TRE. It's my second year. I feel like last year I didn't know what to expect. So it was all new, and you get kind of sucked into the vortex of all this stuff. But this year we had like a strategic plan. We've done podcast panels, met with some other adaptive athletes, got to talk about what happened in 23, what's to come in 24. It's been exciting.
Sweet. Well, hopefully this isn't too redundant, because I want to talk about all that stuff with you.
No.
Before we get to like the panel and stuff, because I'd actually love to hear what you guys talked about. I wasn't able to make it because we've been in this hotel room the last couple of days. Yeah. Start with your personal story, because it'll set the context for the rest of our conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I was born missing my leg above the knee in the 80s, and somehow was drawn to sports young, wrestled my whole life. I would say I identified as a wrestler for like 25 years of my life. Got my blade at like 21, first time ever. And that really kind of changed my life. I like to have the analogy of imagine giving a kid the keys to the Lambo. And that Lambo was my body. So it like opened me up to have speed. And I was addicted to speed and tried to make Paralympic team in the 100 meters for Beijing, London, and then like half a cycle for Rio. Never happened, never came close really. Crashed and burned and kind of hated running and put the leg away. I thought I would never run again. Left where I lived in Kansas City, Missouri when I turned 30. Ended up in Humboldt County and worked on a farm. You could probably imagine what kind of farm I worked on.
Sure can.
And that was like my intro to California.
Yeah.
And I ended up finding Mendocino while I was working on the farm. Fell in love with the coast. Fell in love with a girl. Had a girlfriend there and like made it my community. And then when me and my girlfriend broke up, I didn't leave and realized that like this was like my community.
Yeah.
And have been in Mendocino ever since. And during the pandemic, I kind of got into trail running a little bit further. My first trail race was at Born to Run, I should say, with Luis Escobar. Guy talked me into running 10 miles.
Legend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did the 10 miles, changed my life, did more running, and got more serious about it. And I found this time around with running, it was a matter of love to move and to be outside and to be a part of a community. And with that mindset, I became the best athlete I've ever been. And, started my own race series called Born to Adapt, got sponsored professionally, and traveled the world and just racing all the epic races that we all talk about.
What an amazing story. Do you talk to Luis still?
All the time.
I'd love to hear anything you can share about that, because I've known Luis for a long time.
Yeah.
Also, he's been in the trail running scene forever, since well before I was. And, he's been a race director. He's been a photographer. He's just been sort of a cultural ambassador. Yep. Have you guys connected on after him, quote unquote, changing your life, seeing to where you are now? I'm sure he's pretty proud.
Yeah, we talk a lot.
Yeah.
He's a mentor, a friend. He's like basically teach me the ropes of race directing. He opened the door for me in a lot of different aspects in the running community. He got me in the book Born to Run 2, introduced me to Christopher McDougall and my coach, Eric Orton. He just changed my life in so many ways. And he lives by this phrase that's in the book, Born to Run: the greatest gift you can give is the gift of opportunity. And he says it a lot and he lives by it.
Wow.
And I share that a lot. And I also try to give, the gift of opportunity, because it can change a person's life.
Holy shit. That's beautiful, man. Thank you so much for sharing that. Go back to the moment you said when you were 21 and you got your blade and that feeling of freedom and speed.
Yeah, I remember it very clearly. It was random because I had a prosthetic. My whole life I was in the Shriners Hospital. They take care of kids, and I aged out. So I was like 18 or 19 and they kicked me out of the system. So I had to go find like prosthetics on my own. So I went to this company, like a phone book type deal where you like open up the phone book, look prosthetics up, find a number, call it, and go. You know, it wasn't like Google searching anything.
Yeah.
Because it didn't really exist in this is like 2004 or 5.
Yeah.
And ended up at the shop. They built me a leg, and I went from playing flag football with my friends on Sundays to not being able to do that. And I went to this company's website, saw a picture of a guy racing the Paralympics or something, wrote him an email and was like, dude, this guy that made my leg told me this is just my life. I see the guy on your website running. What kind of horse shit is this? And then they invited me down to their prosthetics place in Oklahoma City, fixed my problem. And while I was down there, like, hey, you're kind of athletic, man. Have you ever thought about using a blade? And I was like, no. Like, how do I get a blade? And they're like, we got one. So they hooked it up. We're in this hallway. And the guy was like, dude, don't be discouraged. It takes weeks and weeks and weeks of practice. You know, you're not going to put it on and go run. And literally, I did put it on and go run down the hallway. And the guy was like, dude, I've never seen anything like this. Let me connect you with the Paralympic track coach. And that was what started my trajectory on I need to make a Paralympic team. Holy cow, this is awesome.
Holy smokes. So it's just a complete rebirth.
Yeah.
Amazing moment in your life, I'm sure.
Yeah. And thankfully I never made a Paralympic team because I don't know if I did, if I'd be sitting here on this couch, you know, sharing the story with you.
Yeah. Because then you experienced a rebirth in your running when you met Luis Escobar and you hit the trails for the first time. On the subject of blades, I'd love to hear you talk about the evolution of the technology in that sense. You know, obviously we'll talk about On and your partnership there, but talk about the advancement of blades technology and, you know, how it does open up this new world of opportunity. Yeah,
I think the advancement is in how accessible they are now. Before it wasn't, you didn't really have access to them. There's many companies producing blades. There's different blades for sprinting and long jumping and long distance, and maybe even CrossFit stuff. So there's a lot of options, lighter weight, different body types, tall, short. So they just have a lot of ability to right fit somebody with a blade. So I've seen it grow from having one or two options when I first got it to now. There's probably blade companies out there that I've never heard of.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they reach out to me sometimes and hey, we're from the Netherlands. We got this new product. You're interested in trying. So yeah, they're starting to pop up. And I think Solomon partnered with a company in France called Hopper, and they produce blades, which is pretty cool.
So do you potentially have opportunity to engage in a blade partnership eventually?
Potentially, yeah. And I think
it's a no-brainer.
It is a no-brainer, but I'm one of the outcasts where there's not a trail blade. You know, so I'm trying.
Opportunity for innovation.
For sure. You know, I got a lot of ideas because the trails blow these things apart.
Yeah.
And I also do a lot of mountaineering, and the mountaineering destroys them as well.
Yeah, I noticed you've got that On midsole and outsole retrofitted to the blade right now. Speaking of On, we should talk about this partnership because it seems like this has been critical to this, you know, trajectory you've been on within trail running, and especially coming into this season and doing so many amazing things, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. But talk about the brand, talk about what it's been like working with them and how they've supported you.
Yeah, so working with On's been a dream. 12-year-old Zach is living the dream of his life, dude. You know, I get to go to Zurich, I get to innovate. They put me in these incredible positions to speak and race all over the world. I get to hang out with David Kilgore, who actually gave me the opportunity. I connected with him March of 22. I've been having calls at this time with other brands that I won't mention, and they were kind of offering me things that weren't really going to put me to where I needed to go. But at the time I was well, it's better than nothing. And then at the last minute, On came in, me and David had a call, and I just shot for the moon. And I remember thinking, this guy either thinks I'm insane or he really vibes with me.
Yeah.
And it was the latter. We really vibe well. It was the next day he sent me an athlete contract that was blowing everything out of the water. It was real deal. Yeah. You know, and instead of try to put me into a box, he was hey, let's create the box together. We don't know how this is going to work. This hasn't been done. Let's do it.
Say a few more words about David Kilgore. For those who don't know him, obviously he's sort of a professional athlete, but he also manages the trail team at On, and he's been at the brand since before it was this multi-billion-dollar international phenomenon. And he's such an interesting, unique personality.
He very is. Yeah. David Kilgore is an enigma.
Yeah.
You know, he is an elite athlete. He races. He's uncoached, runs whenever he feels like it, can run like a 2:30 marathon on a whim, manages the trail team, does all sorts of other stuff on. I have no idea how he does it all, but he's been like just an advocate for me and my mission and the things that are going to change, I think, the paradigm for adaptive athletes across the board. And he's been a big part of it. And he like sees things in a way that a lot of people don't see.
Yeah.
You know, and we just work really well together. So far, we've been to New Zealand, Switzerland. Where else have we been? Places in the U.S. We just get to travel around and have fun. And he paced me this year at MCC, and we were just like laughing at all sorts of stuff the whole time.
And then he ran CCC, I think.
And then he ran CCC
2 days later.
like 3 days later. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so let's talk about the season. So it was Tarawera, and then you went to Valderan, and then you went to UTMB, did MCC. Yeah. I mean, again, just a whole new world of opportunity and like traveling the world, experiencing international cultures, running on amazing trails. Walk the listeners through what this season has been like and what it's felt like emotionally.
Yeah, I mean, so it started out in 22 when I actually failed at MCC. I didn't make the first cutoff, and immediately the next day we went to work on like what it was going to take for me to finish. I had just gotten a new prosthetic manufacturer right before MCC of 2022. So I was like 6 weeks on this new kind of leg. So starting out in January, we had to tweak some things. I started working with Eric Orton, who's my coach. We were kind of unofficially working together. We would see each other at like Born to Run meetups. I would do like a clinic with him. He'd give me these like small tips on my like cadence and my dynamics. I'd go home back to Mendo and like, holy cow, I'm like, he just changed this one little thing, changed my body and all these things. So we started working together. And then obviously we built this plan out that was like this long plan that ended in August at MCC. And I raced Tarawera and had like the race of my life. Like nothing sucked. Everything went to plan, and it was just amazing. And then, went back home, did some more training, and I ended up having to get a new leg made in May. So I spent 3 weeks in Chicago dialing in this leg that I was going to take to Europe with me. So everything had to be perfect. And went to Valderan, raced, epic race, went to Chamonix, lived in Chamonix, had every inch of MCC mapped out, ready to rock and roll. Felt very confident. And then like race day, storm blew in, snowing at the top, course reroute, all these things that you can't plan for happened. And I'm just like, well, we're just going to have to figure it out. And it was a crazy day. But we figured it out. I crossed the finish line in like 11 hours, like 32 minutes. We did get lost a few times because I don't know if a lot of people know this, but they pulled the flags out on me from Argentière to Chamonix. Because there's a lot of miscommunication between the overall UTMB office and the people at the aid stations. They were going to give me the whole 10 hours to complete, and I missed the cutoff at Argentière by 10 minutes, but it takes me longer to go down from La Tour. So they were like, yeah, we were going to give you the whole time, but nobody knew. So they pulled the flags out. So I basically did a renegade finish. There's like video of them trying to cut my bib, and I threw my watermelon down and like pushed them off and ran back out in the crowd, right back on the trail. And like me and David like looked at each other. We're like, renegade finish. And we did it,
Renegades. What a great story, man. Well, congratulations on an incredible season. How has that made you reevaluate your goals in the short and long term?
Yeah, I mean, for afterwards, MCC, I was emotionally drained because they're like even more than physically drained.
Which is natural. Yeah.
Because we worked together with UTMB and they ghosted me like a month before the race. So it felt like a lot of hard work that we had spent, like not just me, but like my manager and some other people within On. They just kind of like let us down. And like there was other adaptive athletes that ran, Troy Sachs from Australia, Amy, and then Lucas Onan from Wyoming. And I just was kind of burnt on it and kind of had to reassess what I wanted to do. And I've always been eyeing Golden Trail Series. It looks like really cool, like the live streams and like the like marketing and stuff. It just looks like a cool vibe. And I honestly kind of like short trail more than like ultra stuff. So I started to like kind of put it out in the universe and like feel it out. Was at the US Trail Running Conference on a panel, and Tim Tollefson was like the moderator. And I like mentioned what my vision was with Golden Trail maybe, and him and I connected. and had a chat about it. And then it became like, all right, I think I'm going to do this thing. And we're going to maybe create something at his event because they're kind of independently,
Yeah.
So we may do something similar to what I do at Born to Adapt, which is the event that I host.
Yeah.
So we may like create an adaptive division and like kind of do what I had on my brain at his thing and see how it goes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
We'll see you there at Mammoth Trail Fest.
It's going to be sick.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about we're here at TRE, obviously.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what you're doing here, the panel you were on yesterday, the podcast you did with Kat Bradley, so people know where to look out for you.
Yeah, so we're just basically like raising awareness and the profile of adaptive athletes. So we did the panel with Jordan, Sergio, and Cal Calamera, and we just talked about kinship building and different, we're all different walks of life. We're from these marginalized communities, and we get to share about like what we're each working on, which was amazing to be a part of that, to hear their stories, and then to share my story with the audience there, and basically get people like less like taboo on like disabilities and trans athletes and indigenous athletes, and like we're here, and like we like not only do we want to partake in the races, but we also want to be a part of the industry and like be CEOs and race directors and all these things, and have some like skin in the game.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So cool. I'd love to hear you talk about the broader impact that you feel you've had. And maybe this will feel like bragging or self-centered or something, but I just view you now as somebody who's had such an impact that's so much bigger than yourself. And you've become such this amazing ambassador and an advocate for adaptive athletes globally. Have you received any communication from other adaptive athletes who've been inspired by your story?
Yeah, actually, it's like my favorite thing to have happen when I get like a random Instagram message, or like today, I met a guy named Andrew who's in a wheelchair, and he was at the panel yesterday, and he contacted me on Instagram. I was like, hey, we're at TRE. We came to see you speak. We're really inspired by the things that you're doing. Can we meet up? And we met up this morning at the On booth, and they shared their story about doing kind of a similar thing with the World Marathon Majors. They're running as a duo. So he's got a runner that pushes him in a chair. And what was the times that they did? Like 2:42 in a wheelchair.
Wow.
Pushing it. And they've done like 4 of the World Marathon Majors. And then they're like, tell us about Born to Adapt. What do you got going on with your race? So we told them about what we do out at the ranch with Escobar. And they're like, man, we want to come do that. So it's really cool to just be like talking and doing the stuff and connecting with these people from all over the world. And then I'm doing Born to Adapt in New Zealand in February, right before Tarawera. And I get people from New Zealand that I've never met in my life that have heard me on some like random podcast, like Dirt Church Radio or something.
Yeah.
And they're like, dude, we heard your story. We heard you're coming to like New Zealand to do this event. How can I sign up? Like, we are so excited. Nothing like this has ever been done. So that's like that's like the reward. That's like the cherry on top. That's like better than a UTMB finish, honestly.
Amazing. So tell the people where they can learn more about Born to Adapt and everything else you've got going on.
Yeah, so probably Instagram, Zachary_movement is a good spot. Borntoadapt.org.
We'll link to it.
Yeah, link to it. TikTok. I do some weird stuff on TikTok.
Okay.
If you guys want to see me like in my full element, Evan's over there, but he's got this inside joke that since we've been doing this documentary for the last 3 years that I plug TikTok everywhere.
Really?
Yeah, it's just a cool spot to go be weird.
I've still never opened the app.
Maybe you should stay away. But
I'm a little nervous.
It's weird content creator, and you just be goofy, but connect with people that you might not connect with any other way.
Yeah.
So I just like connecting with people.
Yeah. And then like if people want to learn more, just go to your Instagram and they can find everything from there.
Yep.
Amazing. Well, Zach, you're the man, dude.
Thanks, dude.
Congratulations on everything that you've accomplished. It's really an amazing story. I appreciate you making the time to come on.
I appreciate you
chat
having me
with us
on.
about it. And we have to plug, he'll be on Kat Bradley's podcast. It'll be a longer form one. And eventually we'll have you on my show and we'll do a
deep
proper
dive.
deep dive.
Yeah.
Zach Friedley, everybody. Thanks for coming on the show.
Man.